Welcome to your deep dive. Today, we're diving into enchantment. How it works, why it matters, and how you can use it to uh, bring people on board with your ideas.
And you've given us quite a mix to work with. Excerpts from Guy Kawasaki's Enchantment audiobook, plus a collection of personal stories. It's like we have the theory and the real world all in one place.
Exactly. So our mission today is to take all of this and distill it down to something you can use practical ways to become more enchanting in your own life. But before we get into the tactics, maybe we should start with what exactly is enchantment?
Well, Kawasaki says it's about delighting people. But think about a time you were truly delighted by something. It wasn't just a fleeting feeling, right? It was something that stuck with you. So enchantment is about creating that kind of deep impression, that lasting impression that makes people want to get on board, not because they have to, but because they genuinely want to.
So it's not just about being like charismatic or persuasive in the moment.
Right. It's about building a connection that goes beyond the surface. It's about inspiring people and creating a sense of shared purpose. And we have this incredible story from Karen Mueller, a filmmaker who's in the Peace Corps, that really highlights this.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
So she was in the Philippines, and one night, a group of armed rebels from the New People's Army show up at her hut. They were there to interrogate her. Pretty intense situation, right?
Definitely, I'd be terrified.
But instead of panicking, Karen did something completely unexpected. She welcomes them in, offers them coffee, and asks them to leave their weapons at the door. Just like that, the whole dynamic of the situation shifted.
Wow, that's amazing. So she basically enchanted these armed rebels.
It seems that way.
Yeah.
She tapped into some human connection and changed the whole feeling of the encounter. It really shows you the potential of enchantment, even in unexpected situations.
That's a powerful example. So we know what enchantment is, but when do we actually need it? When does this go beyond just being a nice person?
Kawasaki points out some scenarios where enchantment becomes essential. Like, think about those times when you're aiming for a goal that seems out of reach. Or, maybe you don't have all the resources you need. Or when you need to make a tough decision, the kind that keeps you up at night. Enchantment can really make all the difference in those situations.
That definitely resonates with me. There are always times when you feel like you're swimming upstream.
Exactly. And what about those times when you're trying to break a bad habit? It's so easy to stay stuck, especially when the alternative is good enough, not amazing. Or, those times when you have to go against the grain, make a choice that others don't understand. It's in those moments where traditional methods of persuasion, might fall short, and enchantment can help bridge the gap.
It's about winning hearts and minds, not just arguments.
Precisely. And those times when you're putting in the work, but the feedback is slow or non-existent. These are all times when you need to rely on something more than just logic or data to keep moving forward.
It's about creating that buy-in, that belief in something bigger. Makes sense. But before we can enchant anyone, we need to do some prep work, right?
Absolutely. We need a solid foundation. Kawasaki talks about likability and trustworthiness as being the two pillars of enchantment. And it makes sense, doesn't it? People are more likely to be receptive to someone they like and trust.
I'll admit, sometimes I get a little impatient with all the soft skills stuff. Like, as someone who is really focused on getting things done, all this talk about smiles and first impressions can feel a bit fluffy. But you're saying that even for someone like me, someone who's really results-oriented, these things actually matter.
They matter, because even the best idea will struggle if it's coming from someone people don't trust or find approachable. It's like building a house on sand.
Okay, you've got my attention. So how do we become more likable?
It starts with those first impressions. Kawasaki talks about the importance of a genuine smile, the kind that reaches your eyes and makes you look like you're genuinely happy to be interacting with someone.
Okay, so not that fake, pasted on smile salespeople sometimes use.
Definitely not. It needs to be authentic. And then there's how you dress. He uses this phrase, dress for a tie, which basically means striking the right balance.
So it's not about overdressing or being too casual. You want to be relatable. What else?
A firm handshake, eye contact, and using clear, concise language can all contribute to making a good impression. And remember, it's about avoiding jargon and speaking in a way that everyone can understand.
So it's about putting people at ease and showing respect. But likability goes beyond just the superficial, right? Our attitude matters too, doesn't it?
Absolutely. You've got to be able to genuinely accept others and recognize that everyone has strengths, even if they're different from yours. It's about getting close to people, physically or virtually, because the more we interact, the more opportunities we have to connect. And perhaps most importantly, it's about being passionate and letting people see what truly excites you. Enthusiasm can be contagious.
So what about trustworthiness? That feels even harder to build than just being likable.
Kawasaki uses this Yiddish term, mensch, to describe the kind of person who embodies trustworthiness. It's about being fair, kind, and transparent in all your actions. It's about showing up consistently and doing what you say you're going to do.
So it's not about grand gestures, but rather about those everyday actions that prove you're reliable and have integrity.
Exactly. It's also about demonstrating competence. You might be the leading expert in your field, but are you sharing your knowledge in a way that builds confidence in your abilities? Think about someone like Terry Gross from NPR. She's so skilled at what she does that you can't help but trust her insights.
That's a great example. It's not enough to just possess knowledge. You need to be able to share it in a way that resonates with people. Okay, so we've got these pillars of likability and trustworthiness, but it doesn't stop there, right? What about the cause itself? It can't just be about being likable and trustworthy. You actually need to be advocating for something worthwhile.
You're absolutely right. Even with all the charm and credibility in the world, if your cause isn't compelling, you're not going to enchant anyone.
It can't just be about being, likable and trustworthy. You actually need to be advocating for something worthwhile.
You hit the nail on the head. Even if you're the most likable, most trustworthy person on the planet, if your cause isn't compelling, it's going to be a tough sell.
And here's where it gets really interesting for me. Like, what actually makes a cause great? What are the ingredients that make people sit up and take notice?
Kawasaki lays out some specific criteria that can help us figure this out. First, he says a great cause needs to be deep. Think of it like an iceberg. There's way more going on beneath the surface than meets the eye. Take Google, for example. It started as a search engine, but now it offers so much more, right?
Yeah.
Email, maps, cloud storage, even self-driving cars. It's constantly evolving, constantly expanding.
Right, so it's not just a one-trick pony.
Exactly. Then he talks about intelligence. A great cause solves problems in a clever, innovative way. He uses this example of Ford's My Key system. It lets parents set limits on, speed and audio volume for their teen drivers. It takes a real concern, teenagers driving, and it adds a layer of control and safety.
Yeah, that's pretty smart.
Right. And then there's completeness. It's not just about the product or the service itself, but the whole experience. It's about the support, the little extra touches, the feeling you get when you interact with it.
Like the whole Lexus experience. You're not just buying a car, you're buying into a feeling of luxury and impeccable service.
That's a great example. Then there's the empowering aspect. A great cause should make people feel capable, like they can do more than they thought possible. Think about Apple products. They're designed to be so intuitive and user-friendly that people feel like they're in control. They're creating, not limited by the technology.
Yeah, it's like that feeling you get when you master a new skill. You feel empowered and ready to take on the world. I like that. What else?
Finally, there's elegance. This might sound a bit superficial, but it's really about how seamlessly everything works together. Kawasaki uses examples like Aeron chairs and Dyson products. They're not just functional, they're beautifully designed. And they operate with a sense of, effortlessness.
Yeah, I get that. It's that feeling of everything just clicks. It's not just about looking good. It's about the sense of quality and attention to detail. Like it goes deep to the core of the experience.
You got it. So I want you, as you're listening to this, to think about your cause, your idea, your project. Does it possess these qualities? If not, how could you make it deeper, more intelligent, more empowering? It's a great exercise to do.
Solid advice. Okay, so let's say we've got this amazing cause. We've laid the groundwork with likability and trustworthiness. Now we need to launch it, right?
Yeah.
But how do we do that in a way that's truly enchanting, in a way that captures people's imaginations and makes them want to be a part of it?
Well, first and foremost, we got to ditch that boring old pitch.
Okay, I'm all ears. Give me the secret sauce.
Storytelling. A great story can transport people, make them feel something, and ultimately believe in what you're saying.
So instead of just listing all the features and benefits, it's about weaving a narrative that pulls people in.
Precisely. Kawasaki contrasts this with, all that typical product launch jargon, all the buzzwords and empty promises. A story, on the other hand, cuts through the noise and connects with people on a deeper level. He points to Lois Kelly, who outlines these 4 compelling storylines that really resonate. First, you've got great aspirations. Think about someone like Steve Wozniak, driven to make technology accessible to everyone. It's a story about, making the world a better place.
That's powerful. Who doesn't want to be part of something bigger than themselves? What are the other storylines?
Then there's the classic David versus Goliath, the underdog battling the giant.
Oh, like Southwest Airlines taking on the giants of the airline industry.
Exactly. It's about overcoming obstacles and proving that anything is possible. Then there's profiles in courage.
Yeah.
Yeah, individuals who face these extraordinary challenges with bravery and resilience. Think about the Schindlers, risking their lives to save others during the Holocaust. These stories inspire us to be better, to do better, and finally, never underestimate the power of those personal stories.
Hmm.
They might not be epic in scale, but their relatability makes them incredibly powerful. Like, my dad drove his Cadillac for 150,000 miles with no problems. That's way more impactful than just saying, this car's built to last.
Yeah, because it feels real. It feels human. Okay, so we've got our compelling story, but launching a cause is about more than just words, right? We need to bring it to life, make it something people can see and touch.
Absolutely. You got to create an experience that immerses people in your cause. Kawasaki talks about this company called Strategic Operations. They create hyper-realistic battlefield simulations, for military training.
Wow, that sounds intense.
It is. They use actors, special effects, everything they can to create this unbelievably immersive environment.
So it's like you step into another world. You forget that it's just a simulation.
Yeah. And while most of us don't have the resources to create, that level of production, we can still apply some of the same principles. We can create vicarious experiences through videos or demonstrations, like those blend tech videos where they blend iPhones and iPads. I mean, you watch that and you can't help but imagine yourself doing it.
Those videos are amazing. It's like they're tapping into this inner child's desire to just see things get destroyed, but safely, of course.
Exactly. And we can use real-life examples, make our demos as realistic and engaging as possible. It's about showing, not just telling.
Okay, so we're telling a great story. We're creating these immersive experiences. What else can we do to launch this cause in a way that really, truly captivates people?
Kawasaki talks about this technique called anchor and twist. You start by explaining things in, familiar terms, things that people can relate to, but then you add a twist, a new perspective that makes them see things in a new light.
So it's like building a bridge between the known and the unknown.
Exactly. And it's important to differentiate your cause, to show how it's unique and different from everything else out there. And one of the most effective ways to do that is to make it easy for people to try it out.
Yeah, that makes sense. Give people a taste of what you're offering. How do we do that?
Free trials, money-back guarantees, easy return policies. These are all ways to lower those barriers to entry and make people feel more comfortable, taking the chance. Think about Amazon. Their look inside feature for books and their generous return policy for Kindle books, it makes it so easy to try things out, without feeling like you're taking a big risk.
It's like they're saying, we're so confident you're going to love this that we're willing to take all the risk. And that builds trust, right?
Absolutely. It's a powerful form of enchantment. But launching a cause also means getting the word out effectively. And there are some really interesting tactics here that go way beyond into traditional marketing.
Okay, tell me more. What are these new approaches? I'm always up for trying something different.
Well, there's this idea of priming the pump. This study showed that just playing French music in a store could increase sales of French wine. People weren't even consciously aware of the influence, but it worked.
It's like those subliminal messages that they used to embed in movies, but in a more subtle, ethical way.
Exactly. It's about creating an environment that subtly nudges people in the right direction.
So, we need to think about the sensory experience, the music, the visuals, the overall atmosphere, and how those can work together to support our message.
Precisely. Another key shift is moving away from focusing only on influencers, those big name celebrities and industry experts, and embracing the power of nobodies. The internet has leveled the playing field, and now anyone can be an advocate for your cause.
So instead of trying to get a shout out from some celebrity with millions of followers, we should be focusing on building relationships with everyday people who actually believe in what we're doing.
Exactly. Because their enthusiasm is authentic and their recommendations carry weight with their friends and family. It's about planting seeds everywhere and nurturing those connections.
Yeah, and that's a more sustainable approach too, right? It's not about chasing, fleeting trends, but about building a genuine community around your cause.
You got it. And then there's this thing called the mere measurement effect. Just asking people about their intentions can actually increase their likelihood of taking action.
So if I asked you, Do you plan to incorporate more enchantment into your daily life? Just by asking that question, I'm increasing the chances that you'll actually do it.
Exactly. It's a simple but powerful psychological trick.
It's like, it makes me think about all those online quizzes that ask, what kind of blank are you? Just by taking the quiz, you're more likely to start identifying with that label and acting accordingly.
That's a great example. And then there's this whole debate about choice. Do we offer more options or fewer? There's this famous study that showed people were more likely to buy jam when there were fewer choices. But then you've got places like that, make your own yogurt place, where the whole appeal is customization, endless options.
Yeah. Like, does too much choice overwhelm people, or does it make them feel empowered and excited?
Right. It depends on the context and the cause. Sometimes, like a curated selection can be more appealing, while other times the ability to personalize is key. So think about what makes sense for your audience, for your cause.
Makes sense. What other tactics should we have in our enchantment arsenal?
Kawasaki highlights the importance of salient points. It's about translating like data into meaningful impact. So instead of saying a cheeseburger has 1,500 calories, you say eating this will make you gain half a pound. Or instead of saying a hard drive has 1 terabyte of storage, you say you can store over 250,000 songs on this.
It's about connecting the abstract to the concrete, making it, really relevant to people's lives.
Exactly. And then there's the contrast principle,
Yeah.
which you're probably already familiar with from your daughter. Remember that time at the toy store?
Oh, yeah. She starts by asking for the biggest, most expensive toy in the store, knowing I'm going to say no. Then she follows up with something totally reasonable. And all of a sudden, it seems like a bargain. She's a master negotiator, that one.
She's a natural enchanter.
Mm.
But this principle can also work in reverse. If you can get someone to agree to a small favor now, they're more likely to grant you a bigger one later. It's about building momentum and creating this sense of reciprocity.
That's fascinating. So it's not just about, like, the big asks, but also those small incremental steps that lead to something bigger.
Exactly. And finally, there's the importance of the first follower. You know that video by Derek Sivers? It shows this guy dancing alone in a park. At first, he looks a little crazy, but then one person joins him, then another, and another. Suddenly, it's not a lone weirdo anymore. It's a movement.
That video is so powerful. It shows that the first follower is just as important as the leader because they validate the idea and make it okay for others to join in.
Precisely. It's about creating that spark of momentum. That can turn into like a wildfire of enthusiasm.
Yeah, it's amazing how just one person can make such a difference just by, like, stepping up and saying, "I'm in."
Yeah.
That's enchantment in action. And all these tactics, when you combine them with a strong foundation and a compelling cause, well, you can create a truly enchanting launch.
You really can. It's like having a toolbox full of different instruments, each one with a unique purpose and sound. I mean, you wouldn't use a hammer to tighten a screw, right?
Yeah.
It's the
Yeah.
same with enchantment. You got to pick the right tool for the job.
Right, and that takes discernment, knowing your audience, understanding the context. But we've been focusing a lot on the how of enchantment.
Hmm.
I'm curious, as we wrap up this deep dive, what's like the most important takeaway for you? What do you hope our listener walks away with?
For me, it's remembering that enchantment isn't about manipulation or trickery. It's not about like forcing people to do things they don't want to do. It's about genuine connection, about building something that benefits everyone.
Yeah, I love that. It's about creating those win-win situations where, everyone feels like they're getting something valuable out of the interaction.
Exactly. It's about approaching the world with sense of generosity,
Uh-huh.
of enthusiasm, of belief in the power of possibility. It's about asking yourself, how can I make someone's day just a little bit brighter? How can I inspire them to think differently? How can I contribute to something bigger than myself?
Those are great questions to reflect on. And all these stories we've been discussing, the filmmaker disarming those rebels, the dad driving across the country to help his son, the entrepreneur being won over by a pair of toe shoes. It just highlights another key takeaway. That enchantment can come from the most unexpected places and show up in the most unexpected ways.
Absolutely. And it reminds me of that story from Guy Kawasaki himself about his first encounter with the Macintosh computer. He was working as a jeweler at the time, and his college roommate showed him this new computer that Apple was developing, and he was absolutely blown away by it. He said it was like the scales fell from his eyes.
It's like he saw the future, the potential of what technology could become. And that one encounter changed the entire trajectory of his life.
It did, and that's the power of those enchanting moments, right? They can,
Ah.
like, spark something inside of us, ignite a passion, and set us on a new path.
That
And
doesn't.
that's something that we all have the ability to do for others. We can be those sparks of inspiration, those catalysts for positive change.
Absolutely. And it reminds me of all those personal stories our listener included in their source material. We haven't even had time to get into all of them.
That's right. And it speaks to the fact that enchantment is happening all around us in our everyday lives. We just need to open our eyes, notice it, and embrace it.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listener with a challenge. Think back to all the examples and tactics we've discussed today. What really stuck with you? What surprised you? What can you apply, like right now, to become a more enchanting person in your own life?
And remember, you don't need to overhaul your entire personality or
Yes.
become some kind of, charismatic superhero. Start small. Just focus on being a little more present, a little more genuine, a little more enthusiastic in your interactions with others.
Because at the end of the day, enchantment really is all about human connection. It's about creating those moments of delight and inspiration and shared purpose, the things that make life richer and more meaningful.
So go out there and be an enchanter. Make the world a little brighter, a little more magical, one interaction at a time.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into enchantment. We'll see you next time.